everybody. Episode number 66 coming to you live. It is September the 12th, 2025. Coming to you live from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And man, I don't know about you, but it's been a rough week. And everything that has transpired with Charlie Kirk and just all of that stuff, it's just a horrific. Yeah, my heart is heavy as well, Phyllis. It's been a horrific week. I can't even believe what I witnessed there, and it just makes me wonder what in the world is going on with some people out there, and I just don't get it. If you don't like something that you're hearing from somebody, then guess what? Change the channel, and move on and listen to somebody that you like listening to. But what a great person. I think that we really lost a good one there, and I actually enjoyed watching. I didn't watch a lot of his stuff, but I enjoyed watching him. I enjoyed watching him when he'd go on the different cable networks, and it's just really, really, really sad. At 31 years old, it's far too young to be going through that. So anyway, my heart is heavy, and I'm sure that. Well, I would assume that everybody that's watching this show, your hearts are heavy too, because if they're not, and if you're one of those people out there that kind of celebrate it, then move along, because we don't want you here. We don't want to. I don't have any patience for that anymore in my life. So, just crazy. I'll tell you what. Last week, I cannot thank everybody enough. The viewership from last week was, my gosh, I don't even know the total numbers. I can tell you this, just on YouTube alone, on my YouTube page, it was over 8,200. And I got a ton of new subscribers. Remember, 92% of the people that watch this show are first-time watchers. So like and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. It is appreciated and it helps. Yes, just all you've got to do, it takes you literally 20 to 30 seconds to go to the right of the screen. I've even got a subscribe button that you can hit. I'm not seeing it on there. Maybe it's on there. I don't know. But all you have to do is subscribe. And don't worry, you're not making me rich. It's just one of those things that it helps with the algorithm. And to tell you the truth, it kind of helps my ego a little bit, just that people are out there and they're digging this stuff. So that's what we want. And that's what we hope. We're hoping that we're bringing you great content. I think that the episode last week, I do want to mention this real quick. And it was about the Buford Pusser case, and we talked about it with Mike Elam. It was very interesting, Sally. I agree. Danny was here, and we had Dennis Hathcock, who was actually an eyewitness as a kid, and the messages overwhelmingly were positive about the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and their investigation and the conclusion that they came to. Of course, there's some shock. I get it. I mean, believe me, I was a little bit shocked too when some of this evidence was coming forward, but I keep getting these messages of where's the evidence? Well, if you open your eyes and you listen, then you will hear the evidence. And I'm not trying to be mean about it. I get it that some people are a little bit puzzled, but listen to what people are telling you. And I can promise you this, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the state of Tennessee is not going to bring out one of their iconic figures that if Tennessee had a Mount Rushmore of famous people in their state, Buford Pusser would have been on that mountain, okay? And they're not going to just take that lightly, that they're just going to go, you know what, we're just going to say that he killed his wife and that's that. No, there is a tremendous amount of evidence that supports that his story was nonsense. And if you just take a minute and separate yourself from the movie and actually look to reason a little bit and a little bit of common sense, I think that you're going to see. Just open your heart up to to just listen and take in all of the facts. Okay. But anyway, even those that have been the naysayers, I'll give you a little bit of credit. You haven't been over the top to where I've blocked you. I haven't blocked you, and so that's good. A couple of other things. I literally had a script over here, and I had a couple of names. Elaine had her sister-in-law, Kristen, in New York City. She's going to be turning 38 years old. She reached out to me. I was able to put together a little bit of a message for her. So happy birthday, Kristen, in the great city of New York City, at least for the time being. And I wish you the best, and thank you for being a fan of not only myself but the show. And also, I wanted to give a shout out to Beth over there in England. Which she apparently is an absolute super fan. I'm really impressed that I remember these names right off the top of my head because I left that piece of paper somewhere. But I really do appreciate you guys checking us out. She said that there's Yorkshire girls, but they're big fans of the show. One of them is a cop in oh golly, I can't remember the name of it, but it's near. They're from Yorkshire, I don't know. It'll come to me maybe. But hey, Beth from across the pond, thank you for being here. This week is going to be really. I was going to say fun. I think it's going to be an interesting week for sure. Actually, to tell you the truth, Danny was saying this too off stage. Danny's going to be joining us again. I'm kind of glad we're having this tonight because it's going to be good for us to talk about PTSD. And it's going to be good to talk about just mental health, and you're going to get some stories that are, there's nothing that's off limits with him. He said that whatever we want to talk about, we can ask him about, and he's willing to share stories. And I've got some stories, and I'm sure Danny's got some stories too. And I don't really, I'm pretty much an open book. So there's a couple of them that came to mind anyway in my world. So that's that. Let me get to this guy's bio. I'll tell you what, I know him, Tyler Burns. By the way, Tyler is backstage. I want you to tell your wife, Beth, thank you for letting us borrow you tonight. We appreciate it. I know Beth and Tyler. I think we had more than one drink together in Indianapolis, and I was speaking there at the Coroners Conference, and it was absolutely fantastic. I think I'm going to be returning there maybe in 2026. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. But I know we've talked about it. I may be back. If so, you'll have to go back. But anyway, Tyler, after working in public safety for over 10 years, Tyler finally stepped away from the field due to post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. Since leaving completely in 2022, Tyler has struggled with the urge to go back, but realized it was better for himself and his family to stay retired. Tyler realized there was a growing concern with first responders and healthcare workers struggling with mental health as a result of the job, and decided to start a podcast titled The Debrief with Tyler Burns. The show interviews people from around the country, giving them a platform to share their story so that others may learn from their lessons before suffering the same fate. And amen to that. Realizing that there is still more that needs to be done, Tyler started a nonprofit organization called Project 86, which we're going to dive into that because that's really important, and it's something that Tyler wants to get into, and I think that's a big deal. The title comes from two firefighters who were on separate departments, both having unit numbers that end in 86. One firefighter, who was Assistant Chief Engineer Mark Hodenschild, died in the line of duty responding to a large field fire on November the 11th, 2012 at 26 years old, when Tyler was still a rookie, only 9 months into the job. Another firefighter, Captain Shaw Doyle, died by suicide on December the 4th of 2021 at just 29 years old. And that's tragic. In an effort to remember their name, Tyler felt that it was fitting to include them. The title Project comes from their understanding that our work is never done and will always continue to improve to help those who help others before themselves. Well said. And let's welcome both Danny and Tyler to the show. Welcome, guys. Thank you.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I love it. Danny's kind of acting as a co-host, but he got stories too.
We just needed another pretty face. That's what it was.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you go to YouTube and you typed in The Debrief with Tyler Burns, you'll find this on there as well. So give him a subscribe, if you will. And so anyway, tell us a little bit, Tyler, about how tell us your journey about even getting involved in the criminal justice system to begin with, or the first responder, really.
Yeah. So it was funny when I was growing up, I wanted to be a cop. I don't tell a whole lot of people that because I'm a firefighter, but I wanted to be a cop. And so I made it my life journey that I wanted to meet as many police officers as I could, try to figure out how to get into the field. Went and did security for a trauma hospital locally for a little while, and ended up leaving there to go work at a prison as a corrections officer. Not the most amazing job in the world, but definitely had some fun doing that. But that was kind of the start of it. And then I had some friends that worked in fire and EMS, and they pretty much convinced me with their blue lights that they had in their personal vehicles. We run blue lights as volunteers here. Convinced me just by that alone, and I ended up joining a department, and the rest was kind of history.
Yeah, and at some point, didn't you worked as a dispatcher too, right?
You did. So I left the prison with probably about $7 to my name because I was only making $12 an hour doing that job, and I had to move back home. That was down in Newcastle, Indiana, just outside of Indianapolis. And I decided it was time to move back home. So I started looking for other work, at least to get by in the meantime. I knew the 911 call center here locally wasn't hiring yet. So I actually did work as a landscaper and for a little while. But yeah, and then I got into, I became a 911 dispatcher, and I did that for a few years, answering 911 calls, dispatching police. I did a little bit of dispatch on the fire side as well for a little bit.
And then you ultimately went to the fire service, or was it EMS next?
Yeah, so I started as a volunteer firefighter with a department, and I was doing that on top of being the 911 dispatcher. And I'm going to say I loved the job as a 911 dispatcher, but it's an incredibly difficult job, and I feel like they do not get near enough praise as what they deserve. One of the difficulties that I had was I am on the other end of a phone line several miles away from whoever is calling for help, and I'm just sitting there just like they are, hoping that police or fire get there as fast as they can. And I can't do anything. I can't make that vehicle go any faster. I can't crawl through the phone to try to help them. I can't do anything. I'm just pretty much helpless other than typing in the notes as they come through. So that's why I ultimately decided to go into EMS full time.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else about being a dispatcher that I think is a little bit stressful is the part that you don't really know what happened. You know, you're kind of, you don't know what their resolution was. Oftentimes you might hear somebody went to jail, but you don't know the full story unless you were to call the cop. And I know that in my years out of the streets, rarely did I ever get a phone call from a dispatcher. You know, every now and then they would reach out and have me call them because they just couldn't help it. They wanted to know. But and I think that's you know, you're detached a little bit, and I think that is a different kind of stress, really. And you lived it.
I'll say here locally, it's probably a little bit better than it is, especially in bigger cities. Usually, police or even fire a lot of times gives us updates over the radio of what's going on. Obviously, besides the normal one in custody or transporting to the hospital, lights and sirens or whatever. But a lot of times they do typically give a little bit more information. But you're right. We would have to either try to call the fire department or we would tell the officer, hey, give us a call. And then we would have them spill the beans on what all went down.
Right. And then so you go to EMS. And so when you get into EMS, what was that transition like? And did you already have your EMT, or was that something that you just decided that I wanted to become an ambulance? I think you were originally going for paramedic, but then you stuck with the EMT route. Is that right?
Yeah, I got my EMT, and my plan was I was just going to keep going and just get my paramedic done and out of the way. That ended up changing, and I just I went and worked for the city just as an EMT for a little while. I say just as, somebody's going to make a comment saying there's no such thing as just as, but worked as an EMT for the city, and I mean I was doing a lot. Like I loved what I did, and I did that. I stayed with the city for about 6 years, but when I was probably about 4 years in is when I decided to go to school to get my paramedic. and that was right around the time. When COVID started. So a lot of things had changed as a result of that, and just made things a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. Jump in there, Danny. If you got some questions for him.
Yeah, COVID just like it was. I would hate to go through that again. It's just like you're learning something new. This virus, you're having to wear a mask everywhere you go, gowns. You don't know when to do it, when not to do it. It just changed the world in first responders and everywhere.
Yeah, it definitely made things very difficult for everybody involved. And I'll be honest, it got to the point we were probably, I don't know, a few weeks or a month in after the mask mandate, and we were like, we're done with this. This is dumb. I'm not huffing and puffing as I'm going up these stairs to go help somebody. I was much larger then when I worked in EMS. I mean, I was sitting in an ambulance for 12, 14 hours, and you tend to eat a lot of fast food. So
right, you're talking about somebody exposed to COVID. Where you were there when as a critical care paramedic or paramedic, EMT, whoever in the back of that truck. When you got somebody with full blown COVID, you're in their face. You're right down there, intubating them and right in their face. Luckily, I never missed a day. I never got COVID. I don't know. I'm not complaining, but it was tense. And then seeing people die from it, you're sitting there, hey, here I am. I got to do my job. Am I going to get it? Am I going to die from it? It was crazy.
I don't think I got it either, actually. I think I was a super carrier. I think I was a super spreader because every time I'd be around another detective, that they're sitting there going, and I'm like Jeff Gatwood. I was like, hey, man, are you all right? And he's like, yeah, it's just my allergies. The next day he's got COVID. And then Mark Kennedy was the same way, where he was sick and he was getting man, I just don't feel good, but I'm okay. It's not COVID. Next day he's out for a week with COVID. And so I never got it. So thank God for that, because it's not like my breathing's great. So
that's
but anyway,
how I did in front of the line. I would cough whenever I'd go somewhere and I was at the back of the line. I would just start coughing and sneezing, then I'd get out front,
Yeah, right. And Tyler, I know what you're saying about that mask thing. Hey, in the interview room, believe me, the individuals that we were working with, as far as the clients, they really weren't interested in the mask, and it's hard to interview people when you can't read their face. So that made it that didn't last for very long. You'll see it in the episodes. We've got the mask starting with the mask, and then it didn't last long. But nevertheless, fortunately, we lived in a place that we weren't like thrown in COVID jail if we violated that little rule. But nevertheless, so you're in this world of, we're here to talk about, basically you had some issues with respect to post-traumatic stress. And I never even asked you. I've known you for quite a while, actually. I've known you for probably, I mean, we don't go chopping it up all the time, but I've known you probably for close to 5 years, really. And in that time, I've never asked you. And what was it that kind of led you to just saying, that's it. I can't do this anymore?
So it was a collective of things, right? Like anybody that's spent any amount of time as a first responder or even healthcare workers, a lot of times it's a collective of different calls that you've been on that have caused issues or whatever. And for me, there was two big calls that really just made me think, is this the right field for me? Was that thinking the best? No. I try to tell people to not think that way, but we can get to that a little bit later. The first call was it was a motor vehicle accident, a minivan versus a tow truck. The minivan failed to stop. The tow truck had the right of way with a speed limit of 55 miles an hour. The minivan was at a stop sign, failed to stop, pulled out right in front of the tow truck. Tow truck flipped upside down with the guy literally hanging in his seat by a seatbelt. In the minivan was a family of 5 with the oldest child sitting in the lap of the mom in the front seat with no seatbelt on. When I got on scene, the child was ejected through the windshield, laying in the center of the road. Mom was just barely hanging out of the passenger side of the vehicle. Dad was fine, and the other two kids were fine as well. The tow truck driver, one of my very best friends, who's actually a part of Project 86 with me, was the first one to respond. He's a police officer, and he made a judgment call. He got on scene. He saw this guy hanging out of his tow truck upside down. He went over, cut the seatbelt, got him out. By that time, the first ambulance was arriving. They started checking the scene and noticed that the little girl in the road was obviously deceased. So they moved on to the next patient, just doing normal triage. When I got on scene, the mother was still alive. We loaded her up, took her to the hospital, lights and sirens, to a trauma center. But it was the daughter, like the whole time I can see the daughter's face, and I can tell you exactly where I parked the fire engine when I got on scene. I parked it pretty much in the oncoming traffic lane, and she was probably about 10 feet away from the front of my bumper when I stopped. There was no sheet, there was nothing. So her face sat with me for the longest time. The other run that really did it for me, in fact, it was my very last call as an EMT with the city, was 5 individuals were running from the police after assaulting a female. It was actually one of the guys in the vehicle, was his girlfriend. They assaulted her. They were running from them, doing probably about 110 miles an hour. Didn't realize that the intersection they were coming up to had a pretty large crown in the center of the road. Ended up going airborne headfirst into a tree. 3 of the passengers in that vehicle were embedded into the tree. One was found laying on the sidewalk, and the other one had gone probably about 25 to 50 yards forward, headfirst into a house. You could not tell what kind of vehicle it was anymore. Part of the motor had actually gone flying with that individual, and it hit a gas line on the house and was causing the gas to blow and hiss. This is probably about 2:00 in the morning. Needless to say, everybody that was in that vehicle died as a result. But we were able to not only get all of the people that lived on that street out of their houses safely, obviously get the gas shut off and everything like that. But that one sat with me for quite a while as well.
Yeah. Traffic fatality accidents to me were some of the worst, just because it could be anybody, and it's somebody going home from work at the middle of the night, and they may get hit by a drunk driver or just a freak accident, really. So those were always the ones that bothered me the most, I would say. And so the thing with your job is that as EMS, you're still going to you still are there, and you're still going to stay at work. They don't have like another crew at the ready to take over for you. Is that right?
Yeah, that was one of the big deals. We were kind of going through a rough time with our EMS agency at the time. A lot of people were not happy with the pay. They weren't happy. There was a lot of different things just to avoid that. But a lot of people were very unhappy. So they were leaving in droves, which made our staffing very poor. And it got to the point where our staffing was low and our call volume just continued to increase. It was not uncommon for me to do about 14 to 16 calls in a 12-hour period. To put that into perspective, even in the city, you can roughly estimate that you're going to be with a patient for about an hour from the time that you get on scene until you give report to the nurse at the hospital. So doing 16 of those in 12 hours seems impossible, but we managed to do it quite often.
Mm-hmm. Then you got to write reports on all of them.
Some of them would be like refusals. Some of them would be like what am I thinking of? They'd be refusals or, nothing found. Like people would call and there wouldn't be anybody there. That happened quite a bit. Alarms, stuff like that.
So this cumulative effect of working this day in and day out, and I think that all three of us can relate with one another to that extent. I mean, I worked in the burn center at Baptist, which is the fourth largest burn center in the country, and then I went on to surgery. I was an EMT as well, and then I went on to police work. So, and then Danny, you've been in the business forever, including death investigations, et cetera. So the one thing that I'm curious about is that all right, so you have all this stuff happening. What was it that you were experiencing specifically that you were just like, something's not right and maybe this isn't for me? Because I would think that's a tough decision to make, because at this point, your job and what people don't get, I think that it's pretty much commonplace with first responders. This becomes our identity, really. And in some ways, we become a little bit addicted to the sirens and the excitement and the life and death situations. Even though in my field, it's about 99% boredom and 1% sheer terror. You're going out on hot calls all the time. Both of you guys are. So my question to you is that had to have been an incredibly difficult decision for you. Were you experiencing dreams? Were you just having moments where you were, I don't know, what were you experiencing personally?
So, in 2018, my child was born, on November 11th of 2018. If you remember, Mark Hawden's child died on November 11th, 2012. I still think he had something to do with that, trying to get back at me for some reason. But so my child was born November 11th, and at the time, I don't remember about the first 6 months, maybe the first year. And a lot of parents would be like, well, yeah, you're not getting any sleep. Well, I worked night shift, so I really wasn't getting any sleep, but I really don't remember the first year of his life. And a lot of that was because when I was at work, I was calm in the chaos. That was my home. That was my comfort zone. When I would be home, that was straight up chaos for me, even though it would be calm. The little bit of noise from the TV or, traffic going down the road or whatever would just drive me insane. And in fact, there was a time towards the end, around 2020, I took my son to a Christmas light show, one that you just drive through. But the line was super long. We're sitting there in this line, and I just noticed that I'm starting to get extremely anxious. I'm having a full-blown panic attack for no reason. I have no idea what the reason was. I'm just sitting there waiting for them to let us come through. Finally was able to calm down. We go through this line, and I decide we're going to stop at the grocery store on the way home, grab some food to make for dinner. And I am in the meat section, literally staring at the steaks, not for any reason. I am just staring. And again, having a full-blown panic attack. I don't know if it was because there was so many people in there or what the reason was. I called my wife because she was working. And I said, I don't know what to do. I'm losing my mind. I don't think I can even move. And she was able to calm me down. She was able to say, just go home. Everything's going to be fine, whatever. But it was scary. It was one of those situations where I'm so used to helping everyone. I can help my coworkers. I can help random people that I've never met. I can't even help myself in this instance. And I've got my 2-year-old with me who he has no clue. I mean, he's an innocent kid, and I can't even protect him at this moment in this grocery store if something were to happen because I'm having a panic attack. So at that moment is when I realized something is terribly wrong, and I think it's time to hang it up.
Wow. That's a big decision. You end up making it out of there. When you get home, I'm sure your wife super concerned. And when Beth comes to you and she asks you, Did you just tell her, I think I'm just done? Is that kind of how that happened? And
no, it took a little bit of time. It took probably a few months, but it was one of those things where it was definitely the first time that I had thought about leaving. And we talked about it. I went and saw a counselor, which is a whole different story. I went to 3 different counselors in my life. The first one was several years ago, kind of towards the beginning of my career. And I specifically told this counselor therapist, look, I know I've got some issues, but I do not want the diagnosis of PTSD, because at the time I was worried that if I got that diagnosis, that would hinder me from getting onto a police department, a fire department, whatever the case may be. And I didn't want to risk that.
Right.
5 minutes into the conversation, he's diagnosing me with PTSD. I got up, walked out the door. The second time I went to go find a counselor, I'm pretty sure that person is seeing a counselor because of the stories that I shared with them. They had never worked with a first responder before. So she didn't really know quite how to help me. The third time was the charm. And that was after this incident in the grocery store, that I found somebody that knew exactly what to do. She almost kind of smiled when I was telling her the story, because she knew the exact therapy that I needed, which was EMDR.
talk about that. What is EMDR for the listener?
So EMDR, I couldn't tell you what it stands for off the top of my head. But basically EMDR is, I think of it as a way to like reset your brain. Now, caveat to this, I am by no means a licensed therapist. I am not a counselor or anything like that. But I call it a basic reset of your brain. And there's a couple different ways that they do it, but the best way for me is they give you something that vibrates. You put one in each hand, and it kind of pulsates back and forth. But you're basically focused on something, whether you're staring at the wall, you're staring at a picture at the wall, you're just focused on that, but you're thinking about what it is that's bothering you, if there's something specific. And while you're thinking of that, your brain basically is trying to pull it out of this box. I always tell everybody, we all have a box in our brain. We store the bad stuff in there that we want nothing to do with. Eventually that box starts to get full, so we start putting chains on top of it and bricks and stuff to keep it closed. So this is to help bring that out so that you can deal with it. It works differently, as from what I'm finding out. It works on people differently each time. So for me, what it did, I would focus on that little girl that was in the middle of the street. And when I first started, I was looking at it first person. I could see her in first person. Yes, eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. Thank you. So I could see her in first person. And then we take a break. I go do it again. And it was almost like I was starting to step away. After several sessions, it got to the point where now I am looking at the whole scene. I could see the little girl sitting or laying there in the road, but I can also see myself standing there staring at her. And more sessions, I just keep getting farther and farther away, almost like my brain telling me, put this in the past, it's done, move on from it. And I'll tell you, it worked. I don't know how it works. I don't know the science behind it, but it absolutely worked.
Danny, have you ever done it?
I have not. I was, I don't know if you brought it up, I was on Tyler's show as well. And we talked about this. Your show that day went quite a long time, if I remember. But in 36 years as being in EMS, I've seen a lot of friends in EMS, fire, and police that go through just what Tyler's going through or went through. Sometimes it gets to me, because I know I brought this up, Tyler, with you, is that I worry sometimes that certain things don't bother me like it does someone else. And then I think, well, is something wrong with me because it's not bothering me? And, it might sound crazy, but, and I have been to therapies before just because, hey, I just want to be sure I'm okay of these things that I see are just like most people see it, just couldn't handle it. Both of you know what I'm talking about. But I haven't been through that, but I would like to research that. We have a peer support team at where I work, and I would like to share that with them to kind of learn more about it.
So,
well, I'll tell you. Go ahead.
Sorry. So it's kind of accessible. It's one of those things that across the country there is a shortage. There's a shortage of therapists, licensed therapists, but there's specifically a shortage of ones that are able to help first responders or that have experience helping first responders. Everything's got a certification these days. I mean, you pretty much need a certification to buy ice cream at the grocery store anymore. But in order to do EMDR, they have to go through a training and receive the certification to be able to do it and have experience with PTSD and that sort of thing. So there should be, for the most part, I would think at least a handful in every state that is certified to be able to do something like that.
Right. I remember one call. I promise I won't. I know this is your show, Tyler, but it reminded me of a call that I went on that wasn't at work, and it had nothing to do with the EMS, but it was on the law side. My wife and I were coming home from watching a movie, and on the back road, I'll make it short, and I come up on a police officer who had a guy pulled over. He was by himself. This was we're back in the country, and I pulled up at the top of the hill. I told my wife, I said, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to sit here a minute and see what happens because he's by himself. And she said, okay. And then they got a little close to each other. And I thought, okay. Without even thinking, I backed down to where they were. And I told my wife, I said, whatever you see, do not get out of this truck. Why I said it, I don't know. I got out. I went up to the officer and I said, officer, I'm a paramedic. Do you need help? And he said, yes. When he said yes, the guy jumped him, grabbed his gun and pulled it out. I jumped that guy and held on to him with all my eyes, like riding a bull for 8 seconds, and just held on to him. My shoes came off, and he was screaming in my ear. He was almost biting my ear, kill me, kill me, kill me. And by that time, it seemed like forever, but here comes backup from both directions. And they got him and they took him to jail. But I come home and I came here to my neighbor's house. He's a police officer that I've worked with for my whole career. We were on SWAT together. And I had to sit down and talk to him. We talked about it. And I've been on a lot of EMS calls, many, thousands. And this incident kind of stuck with me for a while. It was off kind of from what I normally do, I guess. Seeing that gun come out of that holster, that's what I kept seeing.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll mention a quick story just so I can throw one out there, a little war story. But I was a cop for like 15 minutes. I mean, I knew nothing. I'm out on the streets. My car was broke down for some reason, so I ended up riding with another cop that night, and that was unusual because we always rode alone. I mean, we just rode in our own units. And this one particular night, it happened to be Valentine's Day of 2000, and there was a guy riding his bicycle in the intersection up in deep North Tulsa. And so the other cop that he was driving, it was his police car, and he goes, "Hey, what do you think?" And I'm like, "Absolutely," meaning because he was violating the dreaded law of not having a headlight on his bike. Big. But remember, we're two cops that between the both of us, we're not even a moron. All right, you know what I mean? We know nothing about what we're out here doing. We're both rookies, And so we go up to stop this guy, and as we go up to stop him, he basically he's pedaling. And so I get on the radio and I tell him, hey, we're trying to stop this guy on a bike and he's not stopping. And they went advice for traffic. And I was like, no, we'll be all right. I've got a partner with me, but he's still not stopping. And here he is, he's pedaling. So I'm yelling at this guy going, hey dude, stop the bike. And so I come up with this great idea. And I told the guy, his name is Dean Montgomery. I'll throw his name out there to give him a little credit. I told Dean, I said, hey man, here's the idea. I want you to let me out of the car. You're going to speed up in front of him and you're going to cut him off and he'll run into the back of your police car and then I'll grab him. All right. And so we did all of that and everything worked to plan, just perfect. But when he runs into the back of the car, I grab onto him. And as I grab onto him, I remember this guy feels like he just got out of prison. And it's also February 14th. And he's got one of those huge down jackets on. And that's when Dean yells to me, he goes, gun. And what had happened was that this guy had taken a gun out of his waistband and he stuck it in my stomach.
Oh, wow.
And so he's got the gun literally in my stomach. And that's when Dean's like, he can't shoot because he's afraid if he shoots, it's going to hit me. And I don't see the gun. I never saw the gun. I didn't see it at that moment. And then so what happened was, and we were stupid. I mean, what we should have done is we should have pushed him away and got distance, but you're being a young cop and you don't really know, you kind of get panicked a little bit and you don't want to let go of your prize. I mean, this is my guy. I'm arresting this guy, and what happened was Dean ended up hitting the gun with his hand. And the gun, I remember hearing it go click, click, clink, clink, clink on the middle of the road. And so the gun is literally on the 2 yellow stripes on the road. And there was cars going past us. We were on the ground fighting with this guy. And there's cars going past us going 40 miles an hour. I could remember my pants legs blowing in the wind from the cars going past us. And we were fighting with this guy for 7 minutes. And so after that, this is kind of the moral to the story. After that, we get him downtown and he's making some comments that he wished he'd shot me and all this other stuff. And I my boss came to us and he goes, hey, listen, you guys go home. And I was like, what? Go home? I mean, we just started the shift, man. I mean, we were ready to go get another one. And he goes, nope, you guys are done for the night. Go home. And I was like, did we do something wrong? And he goes, nope, you just need to go home. And I went home to my place, to my house. And I had a little baby at home too. They were all asleep. I came home late. And when I got there, I remember sitting on the couch and I was just like, oh my gosh, I almost died tonight. I could have died like that. And I still to this day, and that was 26 years ago, still to this day, I don't like messing around with guys on bikes. It's just, I don't like stopping guys on bikes. I've never liked stopping guys on bikes since then. But I get that. I just remember that moment in time where we got something brand new that we had just gotten for the first time, and it was called a lapel mic. Brand new, they had never had, I know that's going way back, isn't it? And so I'm trying to hit the emergency button. We have a button on those radios that basically it tones out everybody, that tells them we're in trouble. And I'm hitting on this thing, and I keep hitting the hole in my radio. And what it was is it was where my antenna used to screw in. And so I just kept hitting this spot and nothing was happening. And it's that tunnel vision that you get. And that's one of the things that we spend a lot of time training. The reason why my supervisor sent me home, by the way, is because we just witnessed something. We just experienced something that was horrific, and it is a traumatic situation. And he told us to go home. And I'm really thankful that, I know we're talking about some of these things that everybody's listening in on us, and they're listening to these stories. And I want you to know this, it's much better now. It's not like it used to be. Okay. So, and we'll get to what's better about it. And I want you to explain that and stuff, Tyler. But, we all have these kinds of stories. If we all have them, and even the cops that aren't really doing a whole lot, I'm sure that they've experienced them too, so anyway, that's just one of those stories that I wanted to at least throw out there. And I wanted, at least for the point of saying it is getting better. Because back in the day, they would have never sent me home. They would expect me to go out and arrest 2 more, Yeah. And so, and then I might have went to a domestic, and then I'm having to reason with this and having to tell a kid to go clean his room and stuff like that, But go ahead, Tyler.
You know what we call that emergency button on the radio, right?
No.
It's the dispatcher appreciation button.
Okay.
Because
I have not
makes
heard that.
such a loud and obnoxious noise inside the dispatch
It
center.
does.
It's insane.
It
We used to
does.
say the same thing. We would take the patient to the hospital. We would hand them the call light and we'd say, okay, now if you are getting great service from your nurse, make sure you hit this button as many times as you possibly can, especially if we didn't like the nurse.
Exactly. I never done that, Tyler.
Well, that guy that
Right.
did that, he ended up getting murdered later on, and I have an alibi. So I didn't do it. It's still unsolved, but no, he did get murdered after that later on. But he did go spend some time in prison for a minute. But anyway, so all right, so we're here, and then you're doing all this stuff. You make a decision to leave. That had to have been horrible. I mean, it had to have been difficult. I'm sure you had your buddies and stuff that were going, "Hey, man, what are you doing? You know, are you all right? Is there anything we can do?" And then, but you still you stand to that, and you got a family to support here, so that's a pretty big decision. But you make it, and I think that I think that says a lot about you having the courage to make that decision for what's best for not only yourself but for your family. And at some point in time, and I don't know how long ago was it when you left? Are we talking 2018?
I left the city in 2021.
Okay.
And I left altogether, from the county and everything in 2022. So I was officially done 100% 2022.
All right. So you do that, and then at some point in time, you have this epiphany that you want to do something, and you come up with the idea of having a podcast. And throw that picture up, Amanda, so they can see that picture. I think it's pretty cool, actually. That's a sick picture in a good way sick. And but anyway, so you come
there at the bottom.
I do. I think it's cool, man. It's really
beard
cool.
on there.
So you come up with this cool podcast idea. And so how did that all come about? And what is the premise of your show, and what are you trying to accomplish with your show?
So I kind of got to go backwards just a little bit. So I went to college for about a year, fresh out of high school. I went on a football scholarship and decided that after 3 concussions, that it was probably done or time to stop playing football. But when I was there, I was actually double majoring in criminal justice and broadcast journalism. I liked broadcast journalism because I thought it was cool to talk on the radio, and I chose criminal justice because I didn't know what other class I was or what other degree I wanted. So that was kind of the end all. But ever since then, podcasts started becoming big, and about the mid 20-teens started really getting popular. And I thought, man, it would be really cool to start my own podcast. We be like the next Joe Rogan or something like that. But after leaving public safety, I thought, well, now's the right time. And I threw the idea back and forth until I started getting phone calls from people basically just telling me their story, saying like, I'm having an issue. I just need a vent to you. That was the most common way to start the conversation, was I need a vent. And I was getting these phone calls, these text messages, random visits really often, which is awesome. That's what I wanted people to do. I told my coworkers that all the time. If you ever need anything, please reach out. And I truly meant it. But as more and more these conversations started happening, I thought, well, maybe now is the time that I start this podcast. So I bought a really cheap microphone, and I subscribed to a program on the computer, and I just started recording. And my first interview was actually with my wife. We sat out on our front porch, and I had her tell her story. And at one point, you can hear the coyotes in the background howling, which kind of gave it that little bit of thrill factor going on. But so I interviewed her, and then I started interviewing other people, and I thought, man, this is pretty awesome. Like, I'm giving people an opportunity to share their story so that hopefully somebody else hears it and realize, man, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one going through this. There's plenty of people that are going through the same things that I am. But then also letting them know, like, here's how you can handle it. Here are some ideas. Try this before giving it up. Because at the end of the day, while that decision for me to leave was the best decision for me and my family, if every single person that worked as a first responder made that decision, we'd have nobody. So the goal is to be able to help first responders that are struggling while also trying to keep as many of them as we can in the field. And that's pretty much where the debrief was going and how we were leading into Project 86.
Yeah, and you've had your podcast. How many episodes have you had on your podcast? And are you getting a good response from that still?
Yeah, I'm up to around, say I'm in the ballpark of about 50 right now. And yeah, I've got some subscribers on YouTube. I've got some subscribers on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And usually the consistency is pretty good as far as the amount of listeners and viewers. What's starting to happen with me now is I'm starting to get emails from somebody who is representing somebody else, and they'll email me and say, hey, I've got so-and-so here, or I represent so-and-so. This is their background. This is their story. I think they would be great to be on your show. And in fact, I've had at least 3 people, one of which I have interviewed. He's a retired fire chief from Miami-Dade down in Florida. Awesome dude. But then there's a couple others that have recently reached out to me too. So I'm hoping to be able to talk to them soon.
Great. Yeah, that's really great. So then this is also segued from there. And let's talk. I know that we described what Project 86, by the way, this is episode number 66. We're here with Tyler Burns. We're talking about PTSD, and we're talking about, he was a first responder. He was involved in the correction industry, dispatch, fire, all of this stuff. So he's got a pretty diverse background when it comes to that type of stuff. And yeah, Darren says it back, public service employees, really we are the ones that people should be idolizing as opposed to the actors and stuff like that. I think we should get a little bit more credit, you know what I mean? But nevertheless, so thank you for that, Darren. I agree. And that's my cousin looking out for me. But so you end up segueing into Project 86. What is Project 86? What is the whole purpose of this, and where are you going with it?
So Project 86 is a nonprofit organization. We are extremely new, but in the process of growing. What we've started doing is we go to different academies, different classroom settings, different departments and agencies. And we're talking to people. We're telling them, giving them some more insight on mental health, specifically to first responders and healthcare workers. And we're giving them some ideas on how to fight through some of the stuff that they may be dealing with. We've talked to respiratory therapist programs. We've talked to paramedic programs. I've got some fire departments lined up that I'm going to talk to. We're just really encouraging people to think a different way when it comes to this stuff. One of the other things that we're starting to do, in fact, this is the first time I've announced it. We haven't quite opened it up yet, but we're going to start kind of like, the best way to describe it is a lot like AA, but it's going to be a meetup where people can come and they can just talk. They can share their story. They can talk about what's going on in their life, what's going on in their career, zero judgment whatsoever. But the whole point is to encourage people to talk. I make it a point on my podcast quite often that you may not always necessarily need to go see a therapist. Sometimes you do, and I'm 100% on board with that. Sometimes all you have to do is just talk to somebody, talk to a trusted friend, talk to a trusted coworker, talk to somebody who understands what it is that you're going through. but at the end of the day, you need to talk to somebody. And if therapy is the best way for you, then by all means, that's the way to go. The other big thing that we want to do at Project 86 is we recognize that there are quite a few first responders across the country that need assistance as far as rehabilitation, whether that's from alcohol, drug abuse, tobacco abuse, whatever kind of addiction that they have. Somebody may feel like they need to go. And if you're not aware, rehab is a very expensive program to get into. If you're looking at about 30 days in rehab, you're looking at about $30,000 out of pocket unless your insurance is going to cover it.
Wow.
Which opens up a whole nother issue of we don't get paid enough as first responders, so it's pretty difficult for somebody to be able to pay for that themselves.
Yeah. If you think you were depressed, if you think you were already depressed, wait till you get the bill.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Golly, that's impressive. That's a lot. I didn't realize that.
So we want to start a scholarship program to be able to at least pay for half of that, because I'm a true believer in, while it's nice for somebody to pay for everything for me, you have to really want to make a change. And the best way to really show yourself that you want to make a change is still putting some money in towards it yourself. Obviously, it would be a case-by-case basis. If somebody really, really needs help, we're not going to leave them high and dry. We're going to help them out the best we can. That's a little bit down the road. Obviously, we're looking to receive donations and sponsorships and stuff like that, but that's our end goal, is we want to be able to help pay for stuff like that.
What does 86 mean? What does that mean?
So 86 came from two different firefighters. One was on my fire department. His name was Mark Haudenschild. Mark was our assistant chief engineer. I was only about 11 months. I'd only been on the department for 11 months. He responded to a fire call and rolled his tanker truck that he was driving and was ejected from it and died in the line of duty. Mark, it was an incredible individual. I was a good friend with him for that short period of time. The other individual, his name was Sean Doyle. Sean and I actually go really far back. We actually went to grade school together. He was on a different department, and he had committed suicide as a result of many, many different things. But he was a he was a firefighter with a local fire department. He did a lot of stuff. So because of those two, and the fact that their unit numbers ended in 86, that kind of gave us the idea of, let's call this Project 86.
Good deal.
You said something I really liked that I've never heard before, and it's really shocking that I've never really heard of that. But I like that. I like that get together, where people meet and, they can show up. How often were you kind of wanting to do that? Is that like a once a month kind of deal, or what?
Yeah, we're going to start it off. We're going to start it off at once a month. And we're going to do it somewhere central here. I think I've got a location set up. I actually got a few different ideas of places to do it at, but honestly, I can't take all the credit for that idea. A very good friend of mine who is a trauma surgeon, actually just left trauma and is doing something different now, but he's actually a former firefighter and EMT himself. And we went and grabbed lunch last week, and I was running this idea by him, and I was like, do you have any other ideas of things that I could do with this organization? He said, yeah, why don't you try this? And I was like, man, that's an awesome idea. So we're going to go ahead and implement that.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm looking up something. So Danny, take it over. If anybody's got a question, throw it in there.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm looking up for something.
You remember that, I don't know, that exercise that I kind of stumbled upon that I started using in some of my classes, where I got the idea from walking into some of our stations, we're in fire and EMS. So we're in the house with the fire. And I walked into the bay, and there's some firemen. And you know how it is we did it a while ago, when you start telling stories, bad stories, everybody wants to tell one. because we got them. They're in that box you talked about. So I walked into this dark fog of stories that one would tell one, the other one would tell one, then they got me to wanting to tell one. So I thought, how do I clear this up? So I told here's the story that I told them. I told them about a call that I went on several years ago, way back when, and we got to the scene. And when you get to a scene where everybody's outside the house and wants you to go in, it's probably not going to be a good scene to look at. So we walk into the house and we find this body in the back who had, he had it was terrible. He had roaches coming out of orifices and whatever. He'd been dead for a while. And I asked my partner, we did this back then, to go out and get a body bag out of the ambulance. When he went outside, I kind of hid in the closet, one of those old curtain style closets that had the curtain as a door. I kind of snuck in behind there. When he come back in, you could hear the door open. And you can hear him walking across the wooden floor. And when he got to me, I jumped out on him and screamed real loud. And he threw the body bag up in the air and ran out of the house. The police didn't know what was going on. They drawed on him, and it's like, he still reminds me about that today. And everybody in that room started laughing. And it was like that cloud of bad stories just went away. And I thought, what better way for a therapy session is to have laughter. Laughter is definitely the best medicine. And I tried that in the class that I did at work. And what we would do was have a couple, 2 or 3 tell a bad story, sad story. Then this one guy, I got to tell him, his name is Che. As far as I get, he told this story that I had to steal it from him. He told me that he worked his call down by this river where they did kayaking, and he had this girl that sprained her ankle. And she got in the ambulance. She wasn't hurt that bad, but her friend wanted to go. And so she got up in there with them, and they headed off to the hospital. Well, the friend had to use the bathroom. And Tyler, I think you know what I mean when I say this, but they wanted the bedpan, and sometimes you just forget to check those things in the ambulance in the morning. You check all the important stuff off, like the cardiac monitor, but you forget to check if the bedpan's in there or not. But he couldn't find it, but he found a urinal. So he held it up to her and he said, "Hey, do you think you can hit this?" And she said, "Yeah, I can hit that." So he turns around, give her some privacy, and she taps him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, I'm done." And he turns around and she hands him that urinal with a turd sticking out the end of it about that far. And he said, "I don't know. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there and looked at it." And when I tell you, the whole room busted out laughing when he said that. And that laughter just like changes everything. And so I use that. That's something that I do in a lot of my classes.
Well, one of the things that Amanda asked behind the curtain, she was asking, she had said something. I was all right. So I got my answer. I was messaging one of my favorite people. She's a death investigator for Oklahoma City. I had her on episode 7, actually, Lexi Gage. The question, what I wanted to mention is there's a company called ERAP, ERAP. And basically, well, they go to Arizona and Oklahoma, but I thought I heard that they were going to Indiana too. I could be wrong, but they do free EMDR. They'll do. Matter of fact, I know that they will send people to their location, and they do all of that for free. They'll do EMDR. There's Mighty Oaks is another organization that I'll make mention of, and also and a lot of these organizations like Mighty Oaks. That's real big in Tulsa. Actually, they're in California, Texas, and several other states. And I know in our police department, they'll actually give you vacation time to go and attend. It's like a weeks-long deal, and they handle all of your travel to there, the accommodations, everything is taken care of. And they do things like that where they help in that respect. So those are all things that you should at least consider. You should consider those, Tyler, because those are the organizations that I know that are out there for people. And the EMDR, like I said, that ERAP, if you're for sure in Oklahoma, Arizona, there's Warriors Rest there in Oklahoma and Missouri. These are organizations that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested, you can message Tyler or you can message me, or you could message Danny, honestly, and we could probably figure out something or find out via these organizations who might be somebody for you down the line.
You see this shirt? You see this shirt, Jason? Can you see it?
No. Oh, it's an eagle. Yeah. Oh, a flag and an eagle. Yeah. Who was that?
Till Bahala Project.
Okay.
Do you know about that, Tyler?
I do.
Yeah, it's a project, kind of what Tyler's doing. It's to help military first responders with PTSD. It's something you see especially in military, but that's a project that's nationwide, as well, if not worldwide.
Well, that's good to know. And I'll tell you something else I heard recently is that they're doing a lot of therapy that's hallucinogenic therapy with ketamine and I don't know if they're using peyote or I don't know, but I know ketamine is one of the things that they're using, maybe LSD, where they're using it, and they're having a tremendous amount of success with war veterans.
Yeah.
And I know that with the police.
There is a lot of science out there right now. The United States have not made it legal as far as using different hallucinogenics, like the ones that actually work. There's a lot of veterans. I'm going to kind of do a plug here, but there's a podcast that I listen to religiously called The Sean Ryan Show. And Sean Ryan on there talks about his interaction with, he was a Navy SEAL. He talks about his interaction with doing these hallucinogens to try to help get through his PTSD issues that he had. He had to go to Mexico to be able to get the treatment because it wasn't and still isn't legal in the United States. But it seems like they are finally starting to do some research now on like LSD and obviously ketamine, stuff like that to try to help.
Yeah, and it's supposedly doing a lot of really good things. I would assume that for cops you're not allowed to do that, but it's probably right around the corner where you're going to be able to. I mean, heck, every drug out there is a misdemeanor now, at least in Oklahoma. So what I'm getting at is I think this is great. For the police department in Tulsa, I'm just going to let people know, and if you don't have some kind of critical incidents response team, I know a lot of the smaller departments don't have that. We have had it for a long time. I think there's only 7 of us that are still left on that team. I'm one of them. And it used to be like 30 of us on the department. And we were there for our fellow officers that were involved in some sort of a critical incident, whether they shot somebody, whether they didn't. I mean, sometimes that's more of a critical incident for the guy that didn't shoot when his partner did, or somebody that might have witnessed a horrific wreck or things along that nature. That's what we are. And now we're down to, I think, 6 or 7 of us now, or maybe about 7. But what they're doing is they're absorbing us into this other organization, basically within the department, that's called peer-to-peer. And that's kind of the new thing. That's the new shiny thing that everybody wants us to be a part of. So we're kind of getting absorbed into that. And the whole purpose of that, and jump in there at any point and correct me if I'm wrong at any point here too. But the whole point of this, we want to be good when we want to be healthy. And I can't say it enough. Exercise is a great resource for that too. Tyler, I will mention we have Fit First Responders here in Tulsa. That is an organization that started here. It costs any first responder in military $25 to go every month. And they will run you into the ground to where you wish you were dead. Okay. But you will feel better at the end of it. You know what I mean? And so they do a lot of fun things, and it's a great place to hang out with other fellow first responders and get to know them and things like that and become friends with these people. I mean, before that, I never knew any of the ambulance people. I'd see them on calls and it'd be like, hey, but now you're working out with them and you're getting to know them and you're becoming friends with these people. And it's actually changed people's lives. It's helped their marriages. And not only it's about that, they have one of my episodes. It's with Coach JC. Look for it, and he talks all about it. And I think he's expanding to other states. And really, even if you're a first responder and you don't have that in your area, you can do it online with him, with that organization, and it's $25 a month. And by the way, I'll mention this too. Feel free to reach out to me in a message. But if you're a first responder and you reach out to him, he'll send you a book for free. The book is free. And it's a good book to start just kind of on your journey to being a better person. And now I'm not saying, and I think all of us will agree in this room, not all of us are sitting in here and we're all doing our best, man, and so forth. If it, like I say this all the time, if this job doesn't affect you, whether it be yours, Danny, Tyler, what you experienced, policing, doesn't matter. If this doesn't affect you in some way, shape, or form, then you probably shouldn't be doing that job. I am one of those people that is a huge advocate for empathy. I'm not one of those people that I'm not affected. I am affected. I mean, it bothers me when I see bad things and so forth. I care about people still to this day, 27 years later. Who would have imagined? But I actually still care about humanity. So if you're experiencing any of this stuff, you can still do this to where they're not going to make you lose your job. Okay. That was the big stigma. Am I right, Tyler? People are worried about that, right? So tell me, had you had any experiences with that real quick? And we're getting closer to the end, but have you had any experiences where you've seen firsthand that by somebody coming forward that it kind of ruined their career?
There's one story that comes to mind, and I won't share their name, but when I went to go talk to a class, starting this whole Project 86 thing, and during that conversation, or during my presentation, I had a student in that class stand up and tell me that they had recently just gotten out of rehab themselves. And they went to rehab because they had, I'm not sure what sort of addiction, but had some sort of addiction. And during that time, when they returned, they found out that they no longer had a job with the agency that they were working with. They obviously tried to fight it. The agency said, nope, you're without a job. When asked why, they used the excuse of poor attendance, even though they knew where that individual was. I've heard a couple stories like that. I know of a couple people that their place of employment tried to terminate them until they went above their head to the head of HR for their organization, and the HR attorney got involved and said, no, you cannot fire this person. Unfortunately, it is still very prevalent. It still happens way too often.
Yeah.
What about law enforcement, Jason? That's one thing I've heard a lot of from other officers, and Tyler, you brought it up earlier. As a police officer that carries a weapon, that's part of their job, and they're having some PTSD issues or some thoughts, and in the back of their mind, if they say, well, if I go up and tell my supervisor, they're probably going to take me off duty and take my weapon. I mean, is that something that's concerning to officers?
Oh yeah, it absolutely is. And it's happened. And I'll tell you, since I've been a cop here, I think I want to say we've had 5 to 7 officers commit suicide on our department. And I knew most of them that we've lost a lot since 1980. That's when we started keeping track of it. And I want to say the number is probably 9 to 11, somewhere in that vicinity. Of all of the ones that have committed suicide on our department, all of them have been relationship oriented with the exception of one. Okay. I'm going to say that one of them was probably due to alcohol issues and so forth. And she was a dear friend of mine. And on that specific deal, just to kind of share an additional story there, when she was having real issues and stuff, I was called upon to go and to help her out, and we did, and then it continued to go on and on and on. And I remember I was spending a lot of time going back and forth to her house, to the point where I actually told my wife, I said, come on, get in the car. You need to go with me so you can see that there's nothing going on. And so she went over there. When she met her, she adored her too. I absolutely loved her. And the craziest thing is that she had such issues because, well, first of all, all, the alcohol problem was to the extreme that I've never seen anything like it. But she had this fear of going back to the streets, and she was getting removed from a specialty unit, and they were putting her out to the streets, and I couldn't understand it because I kept telling her, like, what are you worried about? You were a freaking great cop. I loved working with you out on the streets, and unfortunately, I'd actually, just to tell you a little bit more of the story here, I'd actually, she would call me and she goes, I need you to come over here right now. And I went over there and she wouldn't answer the door. And I basically was like, what are you doing? You need to quit. You just called me. You need me over here or whatever. And then she'd let me in. And it was just a back and forth thing. And unfortunately, she ended up killing herself, and it was really devastating because she was a dear friend of mine. She was like a sister to me, you know, and I absolutely loved her. And I think back on her case, and I think back on some of the other cases where we've lost other officers. A couple of the other ones I'd talked to within the week before they did it, and they were just kind of those types of people that you know those special people where you worked that you always want to talk to them.
Yeah.
You know, when you pass them in the hallway, they're always the guy that you're like, hey man, what's been going on? You just love them, you know? And I know that, you know, the suicide is horrible, but yeah, that's one of those things that you kind of worry about with officers, because once again, and that's why I mentioned it to you, Tyler, earlier, it is your identity. You wear a uniform. You're part of a team, and you guys are all experiencing a lot of the same things together. And I think that it's important, and I don't know what your guys' take is on this. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. But for me at my house, you know, I'm pretty open about some stuff, but I do talk less about what I see at work at home than I do at work, you know? And I sometimes I just don't want to talk about it. I just kind of really am not interested in going rehashing it. But is that kind of the same for you, or was it something that you would talk about?
It used to be. In fact, have you ever heard somebody or seen somebody put on social media or anything like that saying, please don't ask me what the worst thing is that I've ever seen because I don't want to relive that?
All the time.
I'm trying to change that stigma because, in my opinion, it's not that you don't want to relive it. Usually they give the excuse of, well, I don't want you to live the pain that I witnessed. I'm trying to change that stigma because it goes back to what we talked about earlier. If you talk about it, it's going to help you a lot more than when you just keep it in the back of your head. So everybody, you know, posts about that all the time. There's a guy by the name of Travis Howes who goes around and he talks to first responders and their families all the time. And one of the things that he brought up on there is, do you know why that you say your spouse doesn't understand your job, doesn't understand what you do? It's not because they don't work in the field. It's because you don't give them an opportunity to understand. You don't have that conversation with them. You don't let them in. You don't tell them what your job entails, what it is that you do every day. EMS is really bad about this. We all do the same thing. We go home and our husband or wife or whatever says, hey, how was work? Oh, it was fine. Well, what'd you do? Oh,
Nothing.
Just drove around all day.
Nothing.
Like we don't tell them anything. We don't tell them the fact that we just went on a motorcycle wreck and somebody died from that. We don't tell anybody that we responded to a shooting or anything like that. We don't let anybody in. And I'm hoping that more people realize that when you at least talk to your significant other about what it is that you deal with, it's not just beneficial for them, it's beneficial for you.
Yeah, good point.
I've seen that, Tyler. I've seen that in my own experience for many, many years. It was like home was a different life. Work was
the switch.
Was a switch. And when I went home, I switched it off, and we never talked about it. But over the past probably 5 years, the stigma you're talking about, I agree with you. I see that. So we started talking about things, you know, not to bring them down and kind of tell them all the gory stuff, but kind of tell them about what happened. And I've seen a change in me, and I've seen a change in my family, and it really, really works.
Yeah. I'll tell you something else. You're right. I in my office, I think that there's probably Really, to tell you the truth, it's almost too much goofing around for my taste. But there's a lot of it, and I get it because of the seriousness of the stuff that we see on a regular basis. And so in our unit, in the homicide unit, I think that there's a lot more jacking around than in other units. I'll say that. But yeah, you got to take care of yourself. And if it helps you to talk to others, a couple of things happened to me in 2024. I went to 2 murders back to back. I got assigned to both of them, and in both of them, they were horrific. I mean, to where I was sick to my stomach. And that's saying something, really. And I remember as I was standing there, I thought to myself, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I have reached the limit. Maybe I have seen more than I need to see at this point. Because remember, I've got 10 years of medical stuff before that. And so of a lot of death and destruction before the 27 years of law enforcement. So 37 years for me. And then I was like, oh my gosh, no, that's good. That's good. I'm still human.
Right.
I should be affected by this. This is horrific stuff, So anyway, well, we got to be there for one another. And I don't think that there's near the stigma. The answer to your question, Danny, and I'll get to the point. I think that I don't think that there's near the stigma for cops these days to step up and talk about things and go to the counselor. And we offer free counseling on our department that's all confidential as well. So we've got a lot of really good things here. I think that's great. I think that's great, Tyler, that people are calling you. I have no doubt in my mind that the reason why they're calling you is that you had the courage to step up for yourself, and they're probably calling you because they know that you've been through it. And they know that you're going to have a little bit of a sense of understanding as to what they're bringing to you, and I think that's great that you're doing that. I really think what you're doing is great. It's admirable. You're probably doing a lot of this at your own expense and a lot of your own time, and with hopes that you're going to be able to make this into a successful venture. And I really hope that happens for you. Like I said, I will send you a lot of these different things that I have heard about. Ladies and gentlemen, if you know of anything that is specifically in the Indiana area or in the surrounding states of Indiana, I'm sure that would be a great resource you can't tell them enough. If there's other options out there, they'd love to hear it. I heard you say earlier that EMDR is, there's kind of a shortage, and maybe we can open the gates and then we'll get the people out there that are on board. Because usually that stuff should be free. I can't think that they would charge. I don't know. I've never had it. You liked it? Did you kind of like it? It's a good thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. It was kind of weird at the beginning. I thought this is ridiculous. You're telling me these little objects in my hands are going to make all of my problems just disappear. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, it really did. I was impressed with how well it worked. I still think it's voodoo, but it works.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what else works. EMDR music on YouTube. It's free. Play it while you're sleeping. When you're going to sleep, EMDR music. Also, aromatherapy is very useful. And I think what you're talking about, Tyler, if I'm not mistaken, it's those little fidget toys that you can put in your hand. Is that what we're talking about? Like something with
for this particular, it was the 2 vibrating objects in your hands when you're doing EMDR. But yes, the things like that work too.
Yeah, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everybody for being here. You guys have anything else that you want to close with? Please throw it out there.
I would really quick. I want to commend you, Tyler, for what you're doing. I think you and I have the same thoughts. One thing we know it's true, but we don't want to hear is that suicide is preventable. It absolutely is one thing that's preventable. And I myself have had several close friends. And today I attended a funeral with one was my relative who was a firefighter, and he took his own life today. So anything that I can do to help someone else get out of that dark black hole that they get into when they think that suicide is the only answer. If I can find a way to help get them out of that, I want to do it. And I commend you for what you're doing for that.
Absolutely. I do too. And what is that, 988? Is that for firefighters, or what is that for?
Everybody.
988 is the suicide crisis helpline. So anybody can call that number, and they'll be able to help you regardless of what field you're in, what your occupation is. You can call that number.
All right. Is there one specific to that of first responders, where a first responder is actually answering the phone call?
There's an organization, and now it's slipping my mind the name of the organization, but they actually, Remedy Live. There's an organization called Remedy, REMEDY Live. They do like a chat. Like I think you can text them. I think you can message them on their program or on their website, and they will talk with you also. And then you can call them, but I think it ends up going to a different like crisis hotline as well.
Okay, good.
But
well, hopefully
they do things specific too.
I saw Ostani. I think I'm pronouncing it. Hopefully I'm right. Ostani, first time listener. Great. You know what? There's 65 other episodes that you can listen and you can watch them over and over. Go to my Detective Jason White YouTube page. Feel free to follow me on Detective Jason White on my Facebook page. Go to DET Jason White Instagram. Subscribe, follow, throw up that merch link. If you want something cool like a cool glass or a coffee cup, yes, Danny, I'm getting you one, but I'm getting you a different one. But you can get one of those.
Hey, I give up. I
got to order some of the personal ones, but they're going to be coming. But there's some merch that you can get from the show. All of this goes to a good cause. Somebody actually, I'm kind of new at this money thing, but somebody had actually, I saw on my account, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got $1.70 in my YouTube page. It must be really, it's raking it in now. And no, actually it was somebody donated me $1. They donated $2 to the channel. Have you had that happen, Tyler?
You're welcome.
I have not.
Really? I had a $2 donation, and I'm going to tell you something. It warmed my heart. It made me feel really good. And of course, but YouTube took 30 cents of it, but I still thought it was really cool. I was like, holy cow, the floodgates are about to open.
Wow.
But even then it was still really
one
cool.
of those hats. Those hats are pretty awesome.
Throw that up one more time. That hat is cool. It's on the far. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool hat. So, ladies and gentlemen,
starting to look like Danny's.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what we can do. I'll tell you what. If I come to Indiana again, I'll definitely have a hat for you. And good. I love the merchandise too. I think it looks pretty cool. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. I really want to thank you for hanging in there with us. Hour and a half. Next week, episode number 67. It's going to be my good friend, Corporal JD Baez with Dallas SWAT. And he was actually featured on Dallas SWAT for a long time on A&E. And he's probably he's in the top 10 probably most well-known crisis negotiators in the country. And he's another dear friend of mine. I keep talking about how I'm drinking with these people. Yeah, I've had a lot of drinks with JD too. But we've done our debrief, Tyler.
That's
we did not the Tyler debrief, but we did a debrief in a few different places that we've talked in. We've spoken a few different areas of the country, to include Orlando. That's the most recent that I've hung out with him. He'll be here next week. He's a fun guy. He's very, very deep and intellectual. So I think it'll be a lot of fun, and we'll talk about communication skills, and we're going to talk about crisis negotiating. I don't know that we've had one of those on here yet, and it's near and dear to my heart, so I appreciate that. Anything, final words, Tyler?
I just want to say that no matter what it is that you are dealing with in your life, personal life, professional life, whatever, you are not alone. There is always somebody out there that is willing to help you. And it may seem like you are a bother to your friends or to your family, telling them what it is that you're going through. But I'm going to tell you right now, I would much rather you call me at 3:00 in the morning telling me that you're having a hard time than for somebody to call me at 3:00 in the morning telling me that you have committed suicide.
Yeah.
So
Amen.
please do not give up.
Absolutely.
Get the help and let somebody help you.
Yeah, you're right about that. I've been to more than one crime scene that's involved one of our own, and I did not enjoy it. So good point. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, this isn't a show without you. Thank you so much. We've all had a rough week. Maybe we should all watch or listen to a little EMDR music when we're going to sleep, based on what we watched with Kurt, Charlie Kirk this week. And that's kind of what we're talking about. That's if you weren't affected in some way, in a negative way on that, man, something's not right. So that was horrific to witness. And if you haven't seen it, then spare yourself. You don't need to watch it. Just bypass it. Trust me on that one. Ladies and gentlemen, next week, like I said, I look forward to it. Tell your friends and family, subscribe, like, comment. And please, it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the people that I have on here as guests. And like I said, it makes it worthwhile for everybody. I can't think of anything else. I think it was an epic show. I loved it, Tyler. Thank you so much. Go to his Facebook page, which is Project 86. You can go straight to that page. You can leave comments on there. Check out his podcast. He's been doing some monologues here lately, I've noticed. I listened to a few of them going to work. And he's got some good content on there, and it's good. It's getting the word out there. And it never hurts to listen to stuff like this, just to be more educated, and knowledge is power. So I will leave it at that. Thank you all very much to the band that plays that music on my podcast at the very beginning. You're going to get removed right after I post this thing. We're removing that song because you're trying to monetize me, and I'm going to have to get another song. So you're going to hear different music that's going to be coming up. And it's not that I'm having a midlife crisis. It's that they found out how successful this is, and they want a piece of it, and they're not getting a piece of it. So we're going to fire them and get a different song. So I don't know what it's going to be. But anyway, and Amanda's going, what? Yeah, well, I'll tell you later. So that's it. Take us out, Amanda.